Paul, what's going on, man?
Not much, just putting the share out there. Make sure anybody who wants to catch up with us tonight jumps on.
Awesome. Not a whole lot. So, as you guys know, I'm Josh. This is Paul Brimmeier of Jenna Ice, aka the Iceman. And he's a well-known regular at UMI, up from the same area, Phillipsburg, right?
Yep.
So tonight we're going to talk his build on racing. His path to racing, his build. He's got a gorgeous 69 Camaro, right?
Yep.
69
first gen. Yeah.
Nice. So before we get started, though, I do need to make sure I mention our Bing Bong duo of Tim and Jeff Gordon took their talents to Ohio, and Jeff put on a clinic in the SCB class, and Tim put down some serious lap times as well. Jeff ended up winning his class, taking home the trophy, and Tim ended up finishing fourth in his class. I think Tim was running GT class and had some stiff talent against some folks that we ran with for quite a while. I think Nathan Pop ended up winning that class, who is a regular at the top of the podium, and then Jeff bringing it home with the cone vault. So we want to throw out a big congratulations to them. And
it was wet too, right?
Oh yeah, it was wet. I want to say it rained pretty good the second day.
Definitely adds a unique challenge to it on top of everything else. I think it was probably one of the first events they were out for too, right?
Yeah, I think they did some local stuff, but that was the first big event that they got to this year. I want to say their next one up is going to be the Drive Autocross at UMI in June, first week in June. Beyond the local stuff that they've been running, but yeah, both those guys put it down. It was awesome to see. Definitely awesome to see.
I'm not officially signed up for that one yet, but I might try to sneak in yet. I have to see what life throws at me first.
I know the feeling, man. I put on the calendar some of the events for us for this year for myself, and we're coming to Muscle on the Mountain and King of the Mountain. But beyond those two, everything is within an hour of us here, just local. It's hard to break away sometimes.
Yeah, like I said, the UMI being so close, it's really convenient for me. But if I had to travel, and there's plenty of events that I see guys going to, and I'm just like, man, that's got to be a blast.
Yeah,
and I have the trailer and everything else. I just don't have the time, unfortunately.
Brian says, "Don't be scared when it comes to Drive Autocross at UMI."
Is he going to be there?
I think Brian will be there, so it could be a battle of the first gens.
He's a fast first gen for sure.
You just got to be careful. He might try to cut the grass.
Yeah, he's got that new setup on the front there that I don't know if Ryan will approve of how low the grass will be cut with that. But
he says no.
I don't know if you saw the conversation we had earlier in the week about never living it down, and he's like, "Is there a statute of limitations on how long you guys are going to bring me mowing the grass up?" And it's like, well, you're not going to let JB off the hook on the cones anytime soon, so why should we let you go on the grass cutting? So.
No, and that's the same thing. Last year I opened my mouth and said, first person to spin out of the OGs, where's a dress? And then I forgot the dress, and that was truly by accident. And then, of course, Ashley comes in and is like, oh, we've got this one. And it was like 3 sizes too small.
Yeah, that makes it more fun. And that's the part of what we do that, we talk about our cars and how much we enjoy the actual event and racing, but it's all the other shenanigans that we get ourselves into that really brings it home for me. It's like, hey, this is truly an escape, because if you really break it down and look at it, I was talking to somebody about it the other day. There's, three laps in the morning, usually 3 laps in the afternoon. Maybe if there's an extra time, I might grab one here or there. But that, hopefully, if you're doing it right, is only a few minutes of your time in terms of actual in-car time. And it's everything you do, before or after that really makes an experience that keeps us coming back.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's and that's a big part of it, and that's one of the things that's been really cool with, we started the OG team, and the intent behind the OG team was to create a community. And one of the neat things about this, though, is that no one was picked because they were winning all the time. The winning came after we all kind of came together. And I don't think we or me specifically had anything to do with it, but we mutually support each other. And, it's like last year, Chris Brown was co-driving a car and a fuel pump went out. Well, that dude was everywhere, if he was anywhere, trying to help out and give pointers and watch people's runs, or if their car broke down, help them fix their car, and stuff like that. That's what really makes this count, what really makes it matter.
I've seen that happening before I ever got in a race car, just the instances where somebody would break down and you'd watch people that may have never even had one word of a conversation with that person over there. Do you need this? Do you need that? You want to use my ramps? You need a jack, sourcing parts, everything you can think of. And it's like, it's a big family. And I'm blessed to be in a situation where I am close to one of the tracks that a lot of you guys like to come to.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that environment there. I don't know how it is everywhere else, but I think that they've created a world-class facility there. And I hate to think about going somewhere else and being disappointed because I'm so used to the high bar that's set there. But it sounds like you guys have fun most everywhere you go.
Well, yeah, we definitely do. And like one thing that like down here, so we run our series here, Operation Autocross. And last year we showed up, it was September. And we were getting ready to get the event started, and we're looking at the weather, and we were supposed to get some pretty gnarly weather. And I put a Facebook post up about 10 minutes before gates were to open. And I said, hey, look, we're going to cancel due to weather. It's got impending lightning and wind and all sorts of craziness, but we're going to be at IHOP. Come eat breakfast with us. And so I didn't expect much more than maybe 5 or 10 people. And we ended up filling up that entire IHOP. The manager's like, we weren't ready for you. And I said, I apologize. I didn't expect this many to show up, but they were thankful. And we took good care of our serving staff and all that. But like we had 31 people show up who were going to come autocross, but decided, let's go eat at IHOP and have some pancakes.
Right. They were all in at that point. And they said, you might as well not just be bummed out that you don't get to run your car. Like you said, that's only a small piece of the overall picture in terms of what we're there for at the end of the day. One of my favorite things at UMI is actually the auction, because it's fun just to watch everybody get revved up and go back and forth. And it doesn't matter what the item is at the end of the day. Like there's some really cool stuff that gets brought in there, but a guy's outbidding another guy on a watch just because the guy that bid on it is a buddy of his, and he's just like, I can't let you win. I'm going to win,
Yeah.
And it's going round and round, and the end result is a pretty awesome amount of money that's able to be donated to some great causes. So that's pretty awesome.
Definitely. All right, so we got a little rivalry starting to brew up in here, and you're part of it just because you're a first-gen owner. All right, so Brian throws out there another fast first-gen in the room of Donald Chafin, another car that he's chasing. And then Donald comes in with he's been doing a lot of the chasing. So both of these guys have got some sick, wicked aero on their cars this year, and I don't know. I'm gonna go with my boy Brian on this one, but I can't wait to watch this go down. Him and Donald we might need to throw a little wager down on this.
So maybe, Brian.
Winner throws $50 into the donation pot.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet with these boys. I mean, I've actually only autocrossed twice. Officially, I did the 2022 autocross event. 4 days prior to that, I was having brake problems with the car. Had never really driven that car. Finished middle of the pack. Wasn't displeased with the time. Then last year, I got out. I think it was late March, early April. I got the car out and took it out and took the tranny out of it. TCI returned it back to me repaired, and they had a list of all the items in that car or in that transmission that were replaced. And I was talking to Ramey about it, and I said, I don't know why they didn't just simply state grenaded because it was planetary. It was everything. And the LS that runs in that car is pretty stout. It's we haven't had it on a dyno since it's been put in, but it's 606 at the crank. It's like 554 on the torque.
That's a beast. That's a beast of a motor.
And it's, I mean, Don Hardy Racing down in Texas, he knows what he's doing, and he built that engine. It's a 416, so I guess it's a stroked LS.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of those, and just kind of looking at the numbers, I was like, I think this is going to be a good streetable engine, but would perform well on the track. But that's a lot of torque to throw at that transmission too. It's supposed to be good for like 850 on the horsepower side, but they don't really tell you much about what the torque it should handle is. And so where I'm going with that is that ultimately that transmission wasn't repaired for 2-3 months.
Yeah.
I actually through some great friendships, Ramey helped me out a lot in terms of getting me another transmission so that I could be ready for last year. Well, that was about 2 weeks before the Autocross Challenge last year that I got that transmission back in that car, because it was one of those scenarios where I got a new torque converter. We tried that. It wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
So it was just install, uninstall, reinstall.
Oh, yeah.
Time lost through all of that. And then about 2 weeks before I got to really run the car a little bit more. And then I was on a track again. And it performed like it's supposed to. I just don't have a lot of seat time in it because of those couple instances before I jump in the car and go out there and try to be competitive.
Yeah.
But I as a amateur autocrosser, I look at how I compare to the guys that do it all the time and say, hey, the car can do it. I just don't have the time in it yet, but I'm out there having fun. And one of the things I realized very early on, particularly watching all the different styles of racing that happens out there, you see guys like Sam Strano that are just smooth as can be and going through the course, and it doesn't necessarily look fast, but it is fast.
Yeah.
And then like Brian Cooney, who's out there, and it's just like, man, he's on the edge. That car just always looks like it's on the edge the whole time, and it looks like a blast.
Oh yeah.
And he's putting up fast times too.
Then you got JB, who's taking all the cones with him to try to cut time.
Yeah, I mean, I think this year the way Ryan has the grid set up, JB will actually be the last one before lunch. That way they'll have time to reconstruct the course prior to the second session. So sorry, JB.
Oh man, that's too funny. We'll have to get JB on here again, and we'll talk about his. We call him the Pied Piper of pizza cutting, but I think he's Pied Piper of cone cutting.
Yeah, he's got that new wing on there. He's got lots of aero going on too.
Well, you got that and that front splitter, man. If you don't watch out, the thing's gonna slice your ankles off.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, you got some first gens rolling in with a lot of aero on them. I'll have Ryan put I think it was Anvil as well. Wicker bill on the back. I just got that installed on a spare spoiler that I have. So I have that sitting in my shop. I don't have it on the car. And then I also have their carbon fiber front and their splitter.
Nice.
So we'll get that put on and see how it feels. I'm running 275 35s the whole way around on that car. So I don't have the meat back there that everybody else does. So I say I
don't remember who it was, but he was in a Fox Body Mustang last year at the Autocross Challenge, and he won his way into King of the Mountain on 255s. So
yeah, absolutely.
Dude could scream in that car. I'm like, man, I just want to pack up and go home. This guy's destroying me half the tire.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm always looking for feedback, and I had the opportunity to get JB in my car. Jeremy McCauley ran in my car. And even Ryan's driven my car. And just feedback, like, hey guys, what do you think? Like,
yeah.
As somebody that doesn't do it all the time, it's like, what kind of feel are you looking for when you're going in the track? And they all just came back and said, hey man, your car, everything I asked it to do, it did.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm looking for some like miracle solution to be as good as they are.
You replace this one bolt, you will be
right.
This guy here.
Well, even saying I have nothing on the back of that car as far as there's no sway bar. I got Vikings the whole way around, but it's running a multi-leaf, the same one that they had in the 71 Camaro of UMI's for a while. But there's nothing special going on back there. So like I'm looking at it saying like, what can we do to make it better? And everybody's going like, just drive your car more. Just drive it more. You know?
Well, since we're on the topic of your car, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen to the photos and just walk through them, and let's talk about your car and let me know when to move on to the next one.
Yeah. So like I said, it's a first gen 69 Camaro that my dad bought probably in the early 90s. And this car was green, like not a bad looking green, but when actually I went with him when I was probably maybe 8 years old when he bought the car.
Yeah.
And so I remember, like, it's crazy some of the things you just remember from your childhood, but I remember going with him to look at this car, and he says to them, like, what's the color? And they're like, well, the color is these 3 colors that we had in the garage that we mixed together to make enough paint to paint this car. So it's like, okay, so that's not like PPG code XYZ. It's like you're not getting this matched anywhere you go. Like nobody's going to make this color. And so it was this like kind of a pearlish green color that was pretty unique. And he drove it for a number of years, and then he just kind of parked it one day. And it was always this dream car for us. Like, hey, we're going to fix it up. My dad was a single parent, and we spent a lot of time together doing stuff. But this car was always kind of like hey, we're gonna restore this car together. And it was like, we'll get it done for prom, and you can take this car to prom. And being a teenage boy, you're like, yeah, like this is an awesome car. It's gonna be great. And we just never got to that point. And once we kind of dug into it a little bit, we realized like how much mud was in the car and how much work it really needed. And so it just never happened. And I got to my early 20s, and I think probably about 23, 24. And the car was still it was hanging out in the garage. I told you, we were talking a little earlier before the show, that I have a 89 Jeep Wrangler with a 305 IROC in it. Well, to get that 305 IROC, I had to steal it from the 69 Camaro. That was what was in it back then. So
you pulled IROC power out of the 69?
I did. So the car needed a lot of work.
That's to me.
We took the motor and got it freshened up, and that's what went into the Jeep.
165 horses of that 305 IROC.
Oh boy, I'll tell you what, now that it's freshened up and everything, and it's got 411 rears in that Jeep, it'll actually, with that 350 turbo, it'll shift into second. So
that's perfect, man. That's awesome.
It's enough power for that little buggy. And so what happened then is, basically the car was a shell at that point, and I got hooked up with a guy that he's done a number of these cars. Very, kind of a hobbyist, but very, very reasonable. And the only real piece of sheet metal that's original on the car is the cowl piece. And then the rest of it was replaced, everything from the roof down. And as you said with your car, when we were speaking earlier, you find out that it was tweaked. This one had been hit. He made it right, though. I mean, it's absolutely, you don't paint a car black that's not straight as an arrow. So
and just looking here, I mean, you can tell that some serious time and attention's put into this thing. I mean, how it sits, the body lines, I mean, it's the finer details. You can see your door lines all line up, and the top body lines and everything. It flows like it's supposed to. I mean, it looks well done. You don't see any ripples in the hood, and this is a picture right here where you would see every imperfection if it had them. I mean, we can definitely tell you drove through a puddle that day. You know what I mean?
Well, that's that's the downside of deciding that you're going to take a beautiful car and autocross it. Is I think right now there's probably a cone mark on that side. This needs taken care of. But it's in that picture there. Obviously, you see like those forged line wheels just really set it off. It's got a lot of little trick items, some Ring Brothers stuff on there.
Yeah.
One of the kind of cool things is everybody kind of knows Dan Baker from down at Lumacraft for what he's done for UMI and the trophies and stuff that were done along the way. But he does a lot of hot rod, a lot of coupe stuff. But I kind of started bugging him a little bit, like, hey man, when are you gonna make a first gen Camaro, just a standard coupe grill, not like, I think he was doing the RS grills already. And I was like, make me a grill for this car, and he made that grill piece that's in the front. It's kind of a honeycomb look.
Yeah, it looks good. It's kind of a stretched honeycomb,
and it's just different than the next guy's car, because kind of going back to the Jeep for a second. I remember owning my Jeep for maybe a month, and a kid walked up to me. He's like, "Oh wow, look at you! You got another Jeep Wrangler, just like everybody else's Jeep Wrangler." It's easy to fall in that same category with the first gen Camaros, because everybody likes them. The purists will hate certain things about this car, but everybody it's just the car that everybody knows ultimately. And so kind of finding the things to make it your own, that was an important part for me. And I think, like, the next picture you have there, that's the MPI steering wheel. That's the paddle shift setup.
Oh yeah, with the TCI.
Yeah, so that's it's kind of a neat setup they have. It just talks right to your
Are you running the TCI 4L80, or is that their 6-speed?
So it's your 6X, yeah. So
that's a really cool setup.
It is. I mean, that it fits in your tunnel with little to no modification, and you're able to have 6 speeds there. So I really wanted that combination of street ability and be able to go out. And I always said I just didn't want to be embarrassed on the track. Didn't have to be at the top.
And to give our viewers a little bit of insight on this, so the TCI 6X is it's based off of 4L80. And it's modified valve body. They use the TCI controller, but it takes that 4L80, and with the planetary gear set that a 4L80 has, it's actually capable of running 6 different gears. And they kind of modify that to be able to do that. And it's a really neat transmission. It tightens everything up quite a bit.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a learning curve with it for me, just because I hadn't ever really spent any time tuning a transmission. But they give you full tunability on your overlaps with your solenoids and everything. And once you kind of get the bugs worked out there and get it flowing pretty well, 3rd and 5th hit a little harder than the rest of the gears. But
that's just design, based off the design. I mean, 3rd hits pretty hard to 4L80 to begin with.
Yeah, so that was kind of the biggest thing for me to kind of get used to, was like, hey, where do I want to run this car when I'm on the track? And knowing that 3rd was hitting so hard, I was staying out of it for quite some time until I got the bugs worked out on it. But now it just cruises. It's nice to be able to go, run the car down the road and say, hey, I was running this car 120 mile an hour. And I think I was turning 3,300 RPMs.
Yeah.
When I ordered the drive shaft for the car, they said, you do know that this thing, based without any drag coefficients, like a 200 plus mile an hour car. I was like, yeah, we won't be doing that in this car. but
no 200 plus runs on the backwoods. I mean, I would say your only limiting factor is that the roads are quite windy up there.
Yeah, we don't have the space for that, but we do have a few places we could open them up. But this is an Aeromotive. This is I think it's Tank Inc. with Aeromotive. That's the 340 Stealth.
Their stealth setup. That's a good fuel system.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's kind of that combination between getting enough fuel to your engine, but having it so it's not so ridiculously loud that you don't want to be in your car anymore either.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, we kind of look at certain things. It's like, you're building a car and each component's as necessary as the next. And I kind of brought in my business background in terms of like what I do in making ice, and always having a bottleneck in manufacturing, and saying, okay, what's my bottleneck in my car going to be? If you buy a beautiful engine like this, and you can't get enough fuel to it, you're at a loss. So so that was kind of the attitude for the whole thing. And obviously it takes longer and costs more than you ever expect. That's how every project will be, whether it's a car or life.
But that's so true though. But doing it right, it will be there in the long run.
Well, then that's one of the things that I think I sent you a picture. There's a quick performance rear in this, and I was talking to Mike over there, and I said, Mike, I want to build this and I want to build it once. And we all know we're going to break stuff, but
Yeah.
Being that you don't have a lot of time to work on things, you want to be out on the track. You don't want to be stuck working on it all the time. We started talking about internally and externally gusseting housing, and when you're building one of these, it's like, I don't know, $75 to get it internally gusseted.
Yep.
And we're going back and forth a little bit about it, and I was like, Mike, how many of these have you went back and put internal gusseting in after the fact? And he's like, you don't. I'm like, exactly. Let's do it now, and let's have a rear end that I can't break unless I do something.
Well, and now looking at this picture, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're running a billet front plate on that thing, and it looks like 35 spline axles. So
they are 35 spline axles. Yep.
You did your homework to make sure that this thing is going to last, and this 9-inch will. I mean, you could throw more power at this thing, and you'd still be within the confines of what it's going to handle.
Yeah, I think he ultimately said, I've got 1,200 horsepower applications running this rear end. Could you go a little lighter just because you wanted the weight savings?
Yeah.
Sure. But that's not where I want my weight savings to be at the end of the day. If it turns, turns out, say, hey, this is something that's just, I don't want to say you can't break it because you can break anything, but it's just one of those things where I turn around and I have a QA1 carbon fiber drive shaft on this car. It's like, there's some of your weight savings back. You take a little weight out of your drive assembly there. So this kind of just give you an idea. Like this was a full build car. Like I said before, we went from a rust bucket on through paint and basically assembled it in the, I have a 3-car garage, but basically just dedicated one bay to this car and said, we'll get there in time,
Well, and the thing is, what I like about this though is that the attention to detail. Your entire engine's been painted, and you're running the old school, small block style valve covers on this thing, and your entire accessory drive system here has been painted to match the engine and everything. I mean, it's attention to detail like that shows that thought process was put into the entire car, and that's something to be said for on any build.
One of the hardest things in building a car, especially one that I'm not a show guy, like in terms of taking a car to a show and standing around and talking about my car. I'd much rather drive the car, but I wanted it to be a car that when I did show it to somebody, it was just like, wow, this is awesome. And that's one thing about Don Hardy Racing. If you ever look up his stuff, is like he built SEMA engines. They're high performance engines, but they're works of art in addition to just performing like madmen. And I just kind of went down the list with him. It's all Cerakoted with DLC bolts on it. So it's all the bolts on there, most of them are black. It's all it just gives little details to it. But I had 2 major decisions to make whenever it came down to doing this car that I never thought were going to be that hard. I knew what color I wanted the car to be, which it's a hard one for a lot of people that are building one. Hey, I got to pick a color to paint this. So the car is actually a Mopar color. It's a brilliant black crystal pearl.
Yeah.
Awesome depth in the paint. Looks great. That was easy for me. But then it came down to picking the color for an engine. I was set on going with a black, and then I realized that it was going to get swallowed in the engine bay.
Yeah.
So I saw this color and I said, that'll stand out. It's not showy like bright, but it'll stand out nicely in that engine bay.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, it's not Chevy orange, but at the same time, it's very classy. But it's still there. You're still going to notice. Wow, that looks good.
Yeah, and I mixed that up with a lot of the black accents. I don't know if I sent you a picture of the whole actually installed engine bay, but a lot of the
a little turn one goodie there.
Yeah, as a little shout out to turn 1 there. For sure.
Let me see. I'm pretty sure you sent me. I think nope. It looks like not. So,
but that engine bay, a lot of the like the fuel line and everything's a braided black. Just stuff that kind of accents well with that. Wizard Cooling was really nice to work with, and they set me up with a radiator that really is performing well on that side. There was definitely a learning curve because this isn't what I do every day,
Yeah.
But it all in all, having the resources and the right people to talk to say, hey, what should I be doing differently? What should I be considering here or there? I mean, that's what it does, 12.9 to 1 box from turn one. And I'm like,
yeah,
should have got a 10, and then everybody's like, you get a 10, you're going to run a 1 and 8. It's like,
yeah. Well, and I'll tell you that too. Like, I've got an 8 in mine and I absolutely love it, but it is a little weird getting used to driving on the street because it is twitchy. I mean, that thing wants to turn yesterday.
Yeah. And I think it's somewhere in the 12s. I think it's I'm going to probably get it wrong, but ARG or AGR box in my Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was really hard to get used to on that really short wheelbase. And it's not that fast of a ratio box, but it's much faster than the original is. So it's, once you get used to it, I think it's fine, but I know exactly what you're saying because I don't have enough time on my car yet where I feel like when I'm not running it at the track, I make drastic shock changes and take it out of the street and enjoy the ride. I usually just run my shock settings the way they were on the track. And, I know it's darty with that 12.9 in there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. So let's catch up on some comments here that have kind of popped up as we were looking at those pictures. Tim Gordon finally comes in. He says making ice as in meth. No, Tim, we all don't have the law enforcement background that you do, so we're not talking about that. We're actually talking about water-based ice.
Yeah, for sure. I'd probably be more profitable if it was meth, but
then you would have Tim chasing you around all the time.
It's true, and I can safely consume my own product and still have all my teeth. So
and still have your teeth.
I'll stick with the cold stuff.
Yes, exactly. And then Brian throws out here. He wanted to start their ice vending machines. He's put you $2 in, and you get 16-pound bag of ice. He thought about doing it up north and calling it ice holes. Well,
we can get you fixed up. You want to get in the ice business? I'm your guy. So,
all right then. So Brian, your business idea could potentially have some validity to it. Right. He also says that you're fancy smancy with your carbon fiber.
Well,
Tim tells him he could be the king of the ice holes.
Well, Tim, not on my he's not on my list, but he's on my wife's list because last year he didn't take the message for our team name and getting us into the cornhole tournament, and she was a little salty about that for a while. She's like, "We sent this message, and all these other people get in after us. Now we're capped, so you're gonna have to make sure we make the list this year to participate." And she's gunning for you, so she's no joke.
The Bing Bong Duo needs to make sure the Iceman's in there.
Yep, just sign me up now. I'll be the first entry.
All right, then Donald Chapin says he's loving the leaf springs.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep them on there for a little while anyway. We've talked a little bit about IRS on the car, but again, it's kind of one of those things that everybody I've ever talked to that's been doing this a long time, they're just like, drive your car. Just stop making changes and drive your car. Even JB, who makes changes every chance he gets, is like,
JB changes that car like he changes his underwear, and I hope he's watching. I want him to hear that.
No, and he absolutely will tell you the same thing though. He's like, I should get used to what I have before I change it and move on. And I think it's just one of those things that we always think that throwing parts at them will make them faster, but I think at least in my case, it's definitely more wheel time is going to be what's going to help move me up the ladder a little bit. And the other side of it is that, the car is still a relatively new build for me.
Yeah.
And kind of getting to that point where I'm comfortable enough to say, and I could be wrong in saying this, but for me, I feel like every time you go out there, you have to be willing to wreck the car to push it hard enough to find its limits. And everybody says you have to find the limits of the car and yourself, but that also means that you could go past that limit and you do put your car in jeopardy at that point. And as the new toy becomes older and older and older, it becomes a little easier to say, you know what, let's go out there and give her hell and see what happens.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can definitely relate to that. In my own car, I've spun that thing out. Almost every event I've gone to. at some point in time. And if you have Chris Brown ride with you, and I hope Chris is watching tonight, he's been slaving away on his Mustang trying to get it ready for the year. But if he hops in the car with you, he's going to tell you gas, 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 gas. And the reality is you probably should have let out about 100 feet back. He was riding with me when I spun out and earned the dress last year. So I'm not going to blame Chris because I was the one pressing the go-go pedal, but he was definitely there when it happened.
Well, when I built this car, I knew it was going to have a lot of power, but autocrossing it is definitely a throttle management finesse. It takes a lot of that to it at any point, regardless of gear, and it's a lot of you guys' cars are this way. There's enough power there that you can lose it whenever you want. I spun out last year. I came out, I guess it's Corn Dog Corner there.
Yeah, right in the center.
Came right through there. It has a little bit of dip, and we were going away from tech towards the corner. And the first time I went through there, I was happy with everything. The second time I came through, I let off sooner than I thought I should have, and I tried to get a little bit more. I got back in it a little bit and upset the car. And I was like, hey, I'm going. I'm not bringing this back. So I hit it and brought it the rest of the way around, and we just continued on like nothing happened. Probably
sometimes you just gotta let it go. You just go.
It wasn't going to be safe.
Here's the key. The key is that you don't become a meme. And Brian's become a meme with his efforts.
Yeah, wow. Him and JB are top of the list when it comes to
I would say that Brian and JB are the meme queens.
We might have to do something with that. So I'm upstairs in my house tonight, and this is where the magic happens for my wife's t-shirt business. So she does a lot of custom design work for people, and she'll make one-off t-shirts. So maybe we'll have to put something in the works to have the meme queens shirts made up.
You know what? I'll shoot Marshall Reinhardt a message and have him make a couple bobbleheads with Brian and JB, and then I'll shoot him over and we'll get something made up.
Sounds good, like character style.
Exactly.
Big slice of pizza.
Oh man, this is too funny. All right, so one thing talking tonight, Paul, and you're kind of going over your car and everything. Tim wants the info on the t-shirts, by the way. So afterwards, Paul hit up Tim or Tim hit up Paul. We just get you some t-shirt business.
There we go. She made this one for me right here.
Nice.
She always puts I gotta get it right. She always puts a flag on the shoulder for me too. Good stuff.
That's perfect. I'm wearing my black. I'm not wearing my OSS shirt, but I got my Black Rifle one on. But
there you go.
Our OSS King of the Mountain shirts all have the flag on the side, and then our newest edition of the OSS, just the general shirts, have the flag on the side as well.
Nice.
But no, we're talking tonight, and you're describing your car and everything. Oh my God! So Tim says he's going to put her in the cornhole tournament for t-shirts. So that's your in now.
All right, we got it.
Talking about your car, you really epitomize, who we're trying to reach out to as far as our customer base. You're building your car out of your garage. You're not trying to build it to be, the world's finest race car. You're trying to build your personal favorite car. And I just think that just shows that, to everyone else out there that we've got watching, and our customer base too, that, you own an ice business. You're not a body man. You're not a fabricator building race cars every day. You are doing other things in life. And I know you're very heavily involved in baseball with your boys and everything. And you've got a lot of other things going on. So building race cars is not your primary function, but you have built an amazing looking car. And I want to highlight the fact that you don't need to be an expert to build something nice. You can do it. Just take the time, be patient, learn from those who know, and you can really do something special with whatever you have.
I'd agree with that in terms of, there's a few things that people often overlook, and organization is not my strong suit by any means. But list and a little bit of focus. I had somebody ask me like, well, how do you take a car from nothing? Basically, it was stripped down, sandblasted, and then rebuilt. How do you get it to the point where it's finished, especially when you don't have I don't even have days to commit. Like, okay, it's Saturday morning, 7 a.m., go out in the garage. I don't have that in my world. I spent, half of my Saturday. I worked on Saturday, and then Sunday I went into the shop and cut stainless to build stands for my new ice plant, because that's when my phone doesn't ring, is when people don't think I'm there.
Yeah.
But when it comes to stuff like this, I don't know how I came up with it. But it was like, do something for your car every day.
Yeah.
And that something doesn't have to be 3 hours in the garage. It can simply be, hey, if you saw the rear sitting there with the leaf springs on it. It's like, you might just go out and you might just stick the rear on the jack stands, and that might be all the further you can get that day, but you get it a little bit further. So some days it's a 5 minute. Sometimes it's just like going in the shop and tidying up, so that when you do have the hour, everything's in order.
I can't tell you that the exact thing. My car's still sitting on the lift right now. I'm hoping to get it ready for the season. It's been a pretty busy year for us. But I've gone out there before, and I'm like, all I'm going to do is clean up tonight. I'll spend 30, 45 minutes in there. I'll just sweep, pick up the trash, make sure all my tools are, people don't realize this, wiping your tools down. That's a simple little thing you can do that will make what you do the next time you come out there when you're actually working that much more efficient.
Absolutely. And my dad said it to me once. Well, I should say my dad reminds me of me saying it to him. One time I just looked at him and I said, you can't use it if you can't find it. And he was like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, if you don't have your stuff organized and you don't put it back where it belongs, you don't take that time to keep things in shape, the next job is 3 times as long, because you're hunting for the 10 millimeter, So just take a little bit of time and do those things, but also keep those lists. I had a whiteboard in the garage with me while I was working on the car, and about half of that whiteboard was things that still needed to be accomplished. The other half was things that needed to be ordered, and hopefully some priority on how and when they needed to be ordered in order to keep progress going in the right direction. And when you're building a car, it's a ton of little things. It's one thing to buy a car, which what we can talk about here in a minute if you want the new project coming up. But to build one, and you go online and you find the little stainless steel clips that'll hold your brake lines in place and your fuel lines in place, and you can all those little things take time, effort, and if you don't have them, you had the brake lines but you didn't have the clips, now all of a sudden you're not installing brakes because you don't have that one piece of the puzzle. So having those lists to help out with it, really, you get the box with all the goodies in it to get the job done, instead of just the one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, no, and that's so true. And it's funny. Chris and I had this conversation earlier. We were talking about losing parts. You get a kit together and then you lose that one piece that you have to have. And Chris sends us a video of his buddy that got underneath the car and found it within 30 seconds. He's like, I spent 2 hours finding it. And Chris, if you hadn't posted this all over Facebook, I wouldn't be outing you right now. But brother, man, we've all been there. The other day I was in the garage. I did the exact same thing. I'm getting all pissed off and huffy and puffy. I'm like, where did I don't even remember what it was. It might have been like, I think I'm putting new brakes in the rear of the car. So it's like, where's my brake bracket at? I just had it in my hand. And I walk around the shop for 30 minutes and I look at my hand and it's right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're all kids at Christmas when we get our boxes in.
Oh yeah.
And you open it up and you're looking and you start just pulling stuff out and sitting it all over the place. And then it's like, you get the instructions out and you're like, I should read these, but let me look at all the other stuff first. And then you start wanting to put something together, and it's like, first thing you needed to do was something that you have to undo 3 steps now to go back and do. And
I did that with the Vikings. I was so excited about the Vikings when I got my Vikings in. I'm like, oh yes. And then I start looking. I'm like, oh, ooh,
yeah.
Looks like I'm starting over.
Do I really need never sees?
Exactly. Exactly. That was the thing too. Like Chris and I both joke because he's putting, we're both moving to Vikings this year on both of our cars. And he's like, yeah, I look like the Tin Man when I got done with all the anti-seize. I'm like, yeah, but it's needed. So
yeah. It's just one of those things that you just jump into it and that's the reality of it, and you go with it. And I would say it's always like the projects you get into that you're like, I won't get dirty doing this, so I'm going to do this. And then you get so deep into it that you're like, I'm committed. Like I might as well just do the rest of this where I am going to get dirty.
I can't tell you how many pairs of pants I've had that were nice pants for going out in that have turned into work pants because of that exact problem.
That's my forever Christmas list item are pants, because everybody knows that I will continually turn, like you said, going out pants into work pants, just because it's like, oh, I got 10 minutes. The family isn't, they don't have their shoes on yet. The kids aren't ready yet. I'm going to walk out in the garage and just take care of this one little thing. And it's like, yep, it got me. It got me.
Well, and I've become a huge fan of the $12 Rustler pants from Walmart because they're thick. They're not very comfortable, but they're thick. And I can weld with those things, and I'm not going to get my legs burned off. I'm not going to get like holes in them or anything like that. And when they get really gross and greasy, oh, well, you can't even hardly tell anyway.
Yeah, and worst case scenario, you just retire them.
Exactly, because they were $12. Oh, that's good stuff, man. Well, Paul, we've been on here about 45 minutes now. It's been awesome hanging out tonight. We're definitely excited about getting up there and racing with you and seeing the rest of the family that we've got up there, the rest of the car family.
I've seen some rough drawings that there's going to be some new asphalt up there for us to play on. So that'll be exciting to see what kind of course designs they come up with.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm hopeful that I can get out of my own head when I get up there to run, because it's my favorite place to race, but it's the one place that I go and race that I get in my head. Like last year, I ran at Good Guys Nashville, and I had probably the best run of my career. I'm running head to head with some of the fastest drivers in the country, and I got edged out of the shootout by a 10th. And then I go to Camaro Fest, and I'm running Camaro Fest, and I ended up finishing second fastest overall against a guy in a very well prepped 6 Gen 1 LE. And I looked him up afterwards, and we got to know each other a little bit since then. And he's a hot shoe, man. That guy finishes top 3, top 4 at Cincinnati region every time he races. And then I get to UMI, and I'm like bottom of the pack, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Because like Tim Gordon and I were at Camaro Fest, and I beat Tim by a half a second. We get to UMI, and he had me by 2 seconds. I'm like, man, I got to get out of my own head.
I do nothing for myself as far as confidence goes when it comes to getting out on the autocross track, because I come to UMI, and that's the only event I do or at that track. I mean, I've come to know the track fairly well, but some of the best racers in the country come there to play, and I'm just some guy that has run this car a few times. I'm like, how am I doing? Am I doing okay? And it's like, I'm happy with where I'm at. Like I said,
you're having a good time.
I'm having a great time at it, and I know the car has more in it. I think that's the big thing. Is like, I'm not there yet. The car still has more. It's not drastic. At the end of the day, I pull the timesheets out and I look at how I compare to Brian, and Brian, and first gen guys, and say, yeah, you know what, I'm not horrible at what I'm doing, considering I don't really have any real seat time. And then I'm just like, hey, I'm having a blast at the same time. So, there's guys out there that they just have the biggest grins on their face, and they're 10 seconds out of the game. And it's like, why should I be mad? I'm not. Yeah. I'm not mad at all. We hit a cone, we get upset. You want to do better, but at the end of the day, it's just about having a good time with good people.
No,
so.
That's so true, man. So I will tell you this though. So for the next one, you got to come find me so we can get you a T-shirt. All right. Second thing is we're setting up the coffee stand again. We started that last year, and I kind of like how it turned out. So we're going to set the coffee stand up again. So make sure you come see us in the morning before things kind of start getting crazy, and we'll have the coffee stand back up. And but yeah, we're definitely excited about getting up there and hanging out again, man.
Sounds great. I have my kind of have an official camper spot. I'm not quite Ken Edwards or JB when it comes to the camper spots, but I'm always put in the same spot as long as I'm showing up usually. And you know, I know that I've got some stickers in my camper that were compliments of your. You have 2 boys?
We got one little boy. I got
one boy.
Yeah.
Okay, I think he hooked up with my kids and gave them stickers, whether you knew it or not. So
hey, you know what? That's there's no problem with that. So what's funny?
He said something about being the sales, marketing manager.
He, you know, what's funny about that is he got really excited about that last year. He's like, well, I want to work for the business. I'm like, all right, well, you got to learn how to sell stuff. So he grabs a stack of hats and starts running down the line to every single car. Brian Coney comes up. He's like, dude, what's up with your kid? He's trying to sell me stuff. And I'm like, did you buy anything? He's like, no. Well, maybe you should.
Right. Well, that's a big part of doing what we do, being in business, is our kids are watching us and our every move, and, you know, running a business that we can be proud of. And at the same time, just kind of showing them what work ethic looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, you see that in Oakland, hanging out with Ryan and doing real work. I mean, at the end of the day, it's, you know, you have to entertain them while you're trying to get work done sometimes, but you know, they're always watching you. So it's cool that you get that opportunity. I get that opportunity in what I do. I try to find tasks that maybe they don't seem like they're that big of a deal, but to your kid, it's the greatest thing in the world. I have pictures of my oldest years ago painting a pallet jack orange.
Yeah.
And he just loves it. You know, he just had a blast doing it. And even to this day, he comes into the shop and he'll be like, yeah, that pallet jack over there looks like it needs painted. Like, we should probably get that taken care of. It's like, all right, man. You know?
Yeah. You know what's funny? I ran an autocross at Fort Campbell Military Base on Saturday, and it awesome turnout. We had like 60 cars show up to drive, and we only had like about a month worth of, you know, advertising time, and it's very reclusive. I mean, it was only military people that were there. There was nobody outside of that. But my son came out with me. We gave him the option because my wife was taking our daughters to a princess festival and dance. So it's like, you can go to
really
dance.
An option. There's really a choice for him at that point.
You can go to dance in a princess festival, or you can come with me to the race. He's like, I'm going with you. I'm like, okay. Well, we get out there, and he was a huge help. He helped me set up the timing equipment. We got everything laid out. And then when we got done, he hopped on the ATV, and he'd been paying attention to, you know, learning how to start it and whatnot. And he started the thing up, and he started driving around. And as we people were helping pick up cones and stack them, he was driving out to each location, picking up cones and going and put them away. And like, he was really taking part in the setup and the teardown of running the autocross. And I think that's a huge step. You know, it was a proud dad moment. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's one of those things that you look back on and you say, they were paying attention, whether you realize it or not. And there's a lot of value in it, you know, for them, in terms of saying, like, they're going to look back on it and say, I remember doing this event with my dad, and we had a lot of fun. And kind of like me going with my dad to buy a car. I at that point in time probably had no vision that car would still exist today, and that it would be, you know, my car.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is something that you can continue to do for years to come. And like you said, there's a lot of aspects from the business side that you'll benefit from, hopefully, running these events. But the time spent with your son will be huge. And you don't know what the effects will be long term, but I'm betting it'll get him in a car.
Yeah, you know, we had a guy in a shifter cart out there, and he's like, Dad, I want a shifter cart. I'm like, okay.
Yep.
Let me see if we can find somebody that has one we can just let you drive in first before we just dive down that path. But you know what? If you want to race, I'm all for you racing.
There's plenty of worse things for them to be doing. So
yeah. Well, Paul, thank you for coming on tonight, man. It's been a blast. Definitely make sure you come see me and come see all of us when we're up there.
Absolutely.
And yeah, definitely. And you want to ride in the car? You want your boys to get a ride in the car? Come find me. We will make sure that they hop in there and get a good ride around the track. All right.
Sounds good.
All right, brother. Well, as always, it's a pleasure. For all of you that tuned in tonight, thank you for tuning in. And big shout out. Thank you to Redline Oil for supporting us. It's been an awesome weekend on the racing side of things, and we couldn't do it without them and their support. Long goes with Viking, Turn 1, UMI, and the rest. So again, Paul, take care, and you guys have a good night.
Good night.